I don't know why I'm always so like what's that word? Just it's like the word animated, animated. I don't know. I just be so excited about the live topics I do get to come on here and do because today I'll be on here long. I just wanted to like fact check this rumor media headlines that certain public broadcasting services were not going to be funded anymore. At least that's what some executive orders are pushing for. So I just thought that was like interesting because these are big name broadcastings, if you ask me. What do I mean by big? We're talking how old? How old? I guess that doesn't, that's beside the point right now. But kids, PBS is like very old. I didn't mean to say kids, cause see, PBS kids, it's the same thing, but I think kids is like a whole nother category of PBS for sure. Cause PBS before, when you think National Geographic or older documentary type broadcasting, PBS definitely comes to mind. They got a lot of different categories for PBS now. They got PBS News Hour where they just talk nothing but news, like world news, history news too. World history news. We're just talking about, some of the facts when we talk about PBS right now because it's, people that don't know, they would probably just think you're talking about PBS Kids. Kids is just one category of PBS. I don't even have to go look it up. I know this is probably true. And then they have PBS NewsHour and just all kind of different channels now. But I believe overall it's just like the same broadcast. But like I said, PBS NewsHour, PBS Kids, just PBS is, they all are like different branches that just fall under PBS altogether, if I'm not mistaken. But I know they have been around for a while. And I just been trying to digest this. I said, wait a minute, let me go look this up and see. Because I had heard, that he might try to see PBS about that in a minute. That all this falls under changes with the U.S. Education Department Board, okay? Just like I was talking about the other day with the student loans, repayment, how they're going to be, not repayment, but student loan garnishments, taking people wages and tax refunds, like we said on that last segment. That's not a new thing. We already talked about that topic, but I kind of got to bring it up again talking about this, okay? Because all these changes are kind of happening together. We're talking, our first 120 days, right? 100, 200 days of Mr. Trump being the president and the changes we have seen thus far. I didn't say whether they are negative or positive. I'm not going to make this that kind of. I'm just more like everybody else with the examining the changes as they happen before us. Some have already attended what you want to call them protests in their downtown, in their areas of communities. They've already been out there for different things. Okay? Now I'm just saying, PS, I'm going to talk about them first and then MP. But they're both different broadcasts. And I would say like old ones, not old in a sense of like, oh, they're old news. That's what they do. They report news. And we know PBS kids do more than that. We don't know what all these broadcasters do behind the scenes to help their communities actually. And I'm talking about in the form of like contributions, donation. We check into that type of stuff in our local community. You don't know who donated to your local jewel gym, boys and girls club. I'm trying to give examples. These are like non organizations that can always use help. Before we talk about PBS and NPR, I'm not saying they're less relevant. I'm just saying in our everyday communities, if you don't want to give to people individually, because I've been learning about this too. I'm not going to say for how long. That's besides the point. But I have been learning that there are ways. You don't want to just stop helping people. You can change how you help people though. You can't just tell yourself, I'm done helping. You have to help people individually. But there are already organizations and conglomerates and different stationary events they have for fundraising for hospitals and different charities. They're already doing that, whether you help every day. So I'm just saying, when we take time out, we might want to think about that. When they ask us at Taco Bell, do you want to give an extra dollar for the animal shelter or this? It just makes me how I think about that. Hearing, we didn't say this order may stay in effect. Sometimes these things are reversed, or the judge might throw that like, "No, Trump, we're gonna keep the funding for NPR." They haven't said that yet. What I have seen is that NPR responded. I'm gonna look up this real quick. Did PBS give a reaction or a response yet to this? Because to me, it would be interesting to see what their responses are, what their initial reactions. Like I said, they're old and not in the sense of old news. Probably PBS from the 70s. I'm finna look this up right now because I want to see something. that's how. That's how old. That's how long PBS has been around. Uh, I just want to see when they first came on the broadcast. When is PBS birthday? That's what I want to see really quick for the subscribers. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. What do y'all think about the PBS kids? They're cutting funding for not PBS kids, PBS and NPR broadcast. Y'all probably like, how is this significant? Why is this relevant? I think a lot of people are learning just like me that these funded by the U.S. Department of Education to begin with. These broadcasts were. Wow, I'm not ashamed to say, even if I didn't know that's interesting to me, or that I just learned that. It's okay. We learn together. Uh, I think PBS is important. Okay, I think PBS is important because I know even when we're not talking about PBS kids and all they have for kids and children, uh, I can remember that they also host like a lot of documentaries and history segments and news hour segments. This is what PBS does. It's like education. So we shouldn't be surprised to learn that the U.S. Department of Education was funding them, but we should be surprised at the same time. Like some people just thought it was just, an educational broadcast, Uh, y'all help me out. You can put it in the comments. What kind of, they show everything on PBS. I'm talking about the news. They have their own news hour channel. I haven't had cable in a while. I know cable, you can see it better. Thank you. Shout out to our new subscribers this morning. We love you. This is You Will Make It TV, where we host inspirational quotes, messages, and insightfulness daily. I'm actually going to become more interactive with my subscribers. Thank God the summer's coming, right? I know we all probably have different plans. Some of y'all are traveling. We already wishing you safe travels. Congratulations to all the graduates and graduates that are going to be graduates next year, and the guardians and the everybody that's helping make this possible. Grandparents helping to make this possible. You getting to send your kids off to college and stuff this year. I mean, you deserve accolades. I know it's Mother's Day coming up, but it's not just about the mothers. It's sometimes take a village for real to keep those kids successful and focused. It kind of does matter. It goes along with this topic a little bit, actually. Like, a lot of us were totally raised on PBS. I guess it doesn't have to mean to us that PBS is going away forever. It just means the big part of their funding is being cut is still serious. If you ask me, like what? We're gonna read a little bit this morning of why the president says this. He feels like it's a cut that we can't afford. Like it's in his eyes, it is. Any of these cuts in the Department of Education right now, the U.S. Department of Education. Hmm. All I know, we never need to stop educating the people. The people can never. I'm not gonna say we have to stop because they're already stopping it. They're already cutting funding and stuff. So I don't know what else to say. But the people never have to stop educating themselves. That's my personal belief. No matter what's going on in the world, you should never stop wanting to learn anyway. Whether there's a NPR, PBS, TMZ, these are formally not teachings anyway. Like they're broadcasting. The that you're watching, you can be taught something. Because, see, people sit and watch things for an intent. Maybe they want to be entertained. That's what most broadcastings are for in the first place: entertainment, ratings, views. Okay, but PBS and NPR, this is like two. It's different because they actually do take the time out to try to make sure most of the content that they provide is educational based. Like they do. That's we might have saw these cuts with the U.S. Department of Education. We probably just thought it would be stay within the school boards and the districts. But this is actually leaking over into broadcast. We didn't know. I mean, some of us just learned. The U.S. Department of Education is the one. They provide a big mass of funding to PBS. And I didn't say PBS Kids. I'm gonna just say that one more time for the record. Uh, Not PBS Kids, cause PBS Kids is like a different sector of what PBS does. I haven't even really got into reading reading some quotes, a few quotes from these articles, but I'm finna get on that in 1 second. Good morning, world. Give me 1 second, guys. I'm back. I'll start probably like getting on here more, like interacting, show my face. Anyways, today I'm not gonna do it. It's okay. I didn't do my hair, dress up, anything. Some people come on here, they don't care. But I do try to be modest a little bit. But still, this is like important. So I was looking up the birthday of PBS Kids. And that's what I want to see real quick. I'm surprised I haven't found the answer yet on Google. Y'all can help me. I'm trying to see when did PBS. I mean, because one question leads to another, like with your research with this. Wow, guys, February 26th. I knew it was about the 70s. What did I tell y'all? That was a rough guesstimate. That was a rough guesstimate. I always do that. Okay, so in 1969, the CPB formed the Public Broadcasting System, PBS. For those who didn't know what that stands for, we learned together. A private non-profit. I knew they were probably a non-profit. I never thought about that actually. They're a private non-profit corporation. What is this word? Comprising 171 non-commercial license who operate 347 member stations. That's what I was telling y'all, around the country. Okay? See, it's not just they think PBS Kids is the whole name of the whole no, it's PBS. It's just PBS. They have 347, probably more than that now. I don't know how old Let me look at this article I'm reading. This one is, but they have news stations, everything. They probably even have PBS stations in different languages. That's just like, for a nonprofit, I give them their. I've always loved PBS though, especially as I got older and really learned like more. Tried to learn a little bit more of like what they say their mission statement is, what they really do out here. You know what I mean? When it comes to education, for sure. I hope that this is one of those orders that is temporary or something. We need TBS. I mean, we need PBS. I believe so in America. There's nothing wrong with ever redoing readjusting what you need to. Maybe that's what they're taking time out to do, giving PBS and NPR time to, and that's actually what this is kind of about. PBS is funded by a combination of sources, including the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, the U.S. Department of Education's Ready to Learn grant. Okay. I think they do state that in their, y'all know how PBS will kind of put that one, like, it's like a message they give before all their, it says something about Education Ready to Learn grant. That sounds familiar. Member stations, corporate sponsorships, and public donations. CPB is a private corporation funded by the American people and serves as the steward of federal government funding for public broadcasting. Ready to Learn grants specifically support the development of educational content for preschool and early elementary children. I think that's something we all pretty much knew when you first think of, but that's describing PBS Kids. Even if I do say PBS Kids, that's something just about everybody is familiar with, aware of. That's just how much of a household name it's become, nonprofit broadcasting or not. It's so it just says CPB is a major source of funding for public broadcasting, including PBS Kids, and receives funding from federal government. We learned a lot together this morning on this live. The U.S. Department of Education provides Ready to Learn grants to support the development and distribution of educational media for young children. Okay, but yeah, pretty much still I have not found the answer. I'm looking in the comments, maybe somebody can. Oh, I did. 1969 though, for the record. I should have typed it in the comments for the people really quick. 1969 is when PBS was born. I had found the specific birthday. I knew it was about the 70s though. I'm still stuck on that. I knew it probably had been around just to show like their value in the country. They have literally been around that long. Why are we talking about this? You cut the funding for it. Well, that might look different. But like I said, I'm already trying to think of the pros in this situation, like, or maybe they'll come up with different strategy, just get new funders. I believe all of that would change anyway. You got taxes and tariffs and stuff changing. And it did say that, like, people's taxes contributed to this. Did we know that to PBS? I mean, because it was like a part of the U.S. Education Department. Remember where we go. This is also deals with where we go to apply for funding for school, and some people get grants to go to school and different things. This is all funded under the U.S. Department of Education. You got people graduating this year, so they know what I'm talking about. They're graduating this month as we speak. They're going to be graduating in May or June. And so, yes, these grants are still helping people. I'm talking about just as of current time, as I'm recording this, these grants are still, but we're cutting it so close. Cuts are being made to certain grant funding, too. Just as we already look at next year, I don't think they'll ever cut those one grants through FAFSA. I think those are going to stay around, but as we see, they're just cutting down a little bit on making sure people are paying that money back. See, we got to look at it like a full pie. This is all happening at the same time. I'm looking for my all at the same time. Like, I don't believe they'll cut that grant funding, like I said, with FAFSA, but they are going to be hammering down and probably doing those garnishments like they said for real. People moving forward got to just be more serious, be more aware when it comes to these loans and grants. What do we mean with the grants? People think all they need to know is that it's free money. That's just the first level when we talk about grant funding for business or school or for anything. Yes, it's free money that you don't have to pay back, but you would also maybe want to keep, stay in the loop about how, not just how accessible it is, and also the qualifications for them, because qualifications for certain grants change too. There's stipulations to be able to apply for certain grants change sometimes, maybe yearly. Just it's more to know about grants than just that it's free money. That's just my opinion. For whatever reason, that came to me to say there's definitely more. One second, y'all. Put that back up there. Back to what I was saying, it's not just free money. It's if you're going to be applying for that kind of money, yes, I would just say it makes more sense, whether it's for business, school, to check into that anyway, at least yearly, like I said. Like, hey, have any stipulations changed? Have anything on their requirements, qualifications list changed? Are funding, is it being cut this year, next year, or soon? Are they having any events to raise money? Can I contribute somehow? But when we don't look into this, all we think there's important to know about grants is that it's free money. That's all I was saying. I just feel like it was worth talking about that. It says, how much does the U.S. Department of Education spend? That's a good question. The Department of Education spends on average 268 billion in fiscal year. And this was in 2024, by the way. Let me keep reading. This was 4% of the 6.8 trillion in overall federal spending. The department ranked 6 among federal agencies in total spending. I could really get deeper where we look at what all, seriously, like really get into the numbers. What all does the U.S. Department of Education really fund for real? Like, because that's what we could expect a lot of this stuff to see changes to. Down to the preschool. Y'all didn't hear that article I just read? Preschool still has to do with the U.S. Department of Education when they were funding it. Preschool is still a level of learning. It's a level of education. Even if it is a level below pre-K. We just look at it like, oh, they're babies. Like, a lot of people really believe, pre-K is not a grade. Like, it's like a not a grade that doesn't count. Pre-K does. Pre-K is a whole grade, and the grade before pre-K. What is that called? They call it like early learning level. I'm talking about the age of 2 or 3. Yes, the U.S. Department of Education funds schools and facilities, and that's what we're pretty much looking at here when we talk about this. For kids that young too, that's still a grade level, and according to their books. They don't wait till they're in kindergarten, first grade, and then they're paying money, funding to help our kids be in school. We just thought it was free, right? It's a public service. But like I said, most things we think are free are not. Somebody is paying for it some way, somehow. We're all contributing. And I feel like people was first standing up more like never before, or like we hadn't seen in a long time, when the kids had to wear face masks to school, because some had allergies or breathing issues before the pandemic, before COVID-19 was even around. And a lot of things had changed. Maybe people were being offered or advised to get vaccines and different stuff like this. But then you had, at the same time, the LGBTQ rights movement had started, and you just had parents being more vocal about what they did and didn't want around their children when it came to the borders of their children's education. Let me add that. You know what I mean? Maybe they felt like, no, I don't want my kid to have this vaccine, or I don't want them to have face masks, or I don't want them to be around LGBT, whatever their concerns were. Some of them, it was about the kids having to do school at home. I mean, we just don't talk about it as much, but we'll never forget. That was like history making. When COVID-19 came, schools were closed for a little while. I'm just reminding people there was still funding put into that, making sure those lunches and stuff were given out. They would set up stations where the kids could still come get breakfast and lunch, even though the physical schools were closed down. Somebody still had to fund all those MacBooks, Chromebooks. How do we think they had those devices during the pandemic to do the schoolwork on? It cost money. We thought that stuff came out of thin air, and the parents didn't have to provide them. And they also got school supplies and hotspot boxes, so that most households, they tried to make sure they had at least one, so they could still do their work on it. Because I hope we would look at it that way. There's no way they're cutting funding to all this stuff without another plan somewhere in effect. Maybe it's newsworthy, it's going to be talked about, because these are, like I said, these are things that never happened before, or hasn't happened in a long time. Tariffs and budget cuts. I mean, we're used to that in certain areas, but they're just happening more they're at a more frequent level, and also how much is being cut. That's what we're talking about here. Okay, we're not talking about BET or MTV or any other stations right now, broadcasting stations, TMZ, none of them. We're talking about PBS and NPR. I'm trying to find that article where he was saying he feel like it's a reason he gave of why he feels like these should be slashed. Like, they promote, I would say politics has always been a part, though, of just, we're talking about PBS today. That's just a part of what they do. They share news maybe from other stations, or they also cover their own stories about what's happening in politics. Come on now, even 9/11, PBS talked about that. Because I'm trying to understand, like, it got to be a serious, I understand that too, like hardship and having to decide where you're finna cut money from and take money back from and stuff like this with student loans. But this is actually surrounds education too. PBS and NPR. And it's more like on a global scale. PBS is not just I guess they're talking about here, our broadcast here. Because I know they do world news and documentaries, the whole world uses. That's just how big PBS has gotten. I'm trying to think once again, some of our like Mr. What's his name? Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. that came through PBS. That show. It don't matter if they don't air it anymore. I think they have Daniel Tiger's Neighborhood. It's supposed to be like a spinoff to that. And I've checked Mr. Daniel's Neighborhood out. It's kind of like Mr. Rogers. It wasn't one of my favorites. I don't even think my little daughter watches it, but I know it's education. I watch it enough to know it's educational. Mr. Rogers, I think he was educational too, just teaching people to be. Really, I think we downplayed Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood anyway. He really did teach people to be like more friendlier in their communities. You know what I mean? It's a neighborhood. He was just a very neighborly person right there on the TV screen. And kids watch this. Okay? Maybe, teaching them what everything is in their city, the mailman, the fire truck. That's really important to know, like your resources and what's available to you just because you're a citizen or a resident of a community. So, like I said, I just think we downplayed Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood a little bit. And what he really did try to instill, I'm not going to say he did or didn't, but I know that was the mission of that show. It has some educational things in it. And we're downplaying that. Being friendly in your neighborhood, being a community person is actually very essential. So thank you, Mr. Rogers. And thank you, PBS, for that show. And the producers and everybody that helped to make Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood possible. I can't believe I lost my article here that I had pulled up. Let me go back. I think this one I was looking at was from New York Post. It was published May 2nd, 2025. Yep. The Corporation for Public Broadcasting dismissed President Trump's executive order. So this was like their response. Okay. Arguing they aren't. This is their argument. I'm just reading it verbatim here, and then I can give my reaction in 1 second. But it says they're arguing they aren't under the White House's thumb. CPB is not a federal executive agency subject to the president's authority, the corporation's president said in a statement Friday. Congress directly authorized and funded CPB to be a private, non-profit corporation wholly independent of the federal government. That's why I say I don't think this is gonna stand long anyway. But it does send whatever message. So Trump signed an executive order late Thursday that aimed to pretty much cut the funding to PBS and NPR, alleging bias in the broadcasters' reporting. I'm going to read that sentence one more time. Trump signed an executive order late Thursday that aims to slash public subsidies to PBS and NPR, alleging bias in the broadcasters' reporting. So the White House, in a social media post announcing the order, says the outlets receive millions from taxpayers to spread radical woke propaganda disguised as news. Wow. I wonder how many other stations could be accused of this soon. Because they're already saying this is the grounds for this with PBS. They are accusing them of trying to spread radical woke propaganda disguised as news. These were the White House words. PBS and NPR both receive partial funding via CPB, which Trump has argued is unnecessary in the current media environment. So have any of you guys ever looked at PBS as sharing that kind of news though? I just always known them they're like a regular news reporting. They try to share it more in an educational way. Government funding of news media in this environment is not only outdated. Oh, they're using the outdated. card. Yeah, I mean, you can't call history outdated news. This is funny. I'm just reading it out loud though. Like giving my reactions live. That is crazy. These are the quotes of the White House statement about this. But it says government funding of news media in this environment is not only outdated and unnecessary, but corrosive to the appearance of journalistic independence. Trump wrote in a sweeping order. The CPB board shall cease direct funding consistent with any administration's policy to ensure that federal funding does not support bias and partisan news coverage. He shall cancel existing direct funding to the maximum extent allowed by law and shall decline to provide future funding. That is crazy. The order also aims to suspend indirect government funding of NPR and PBS by asking CPB to ensure that licensees and permittees of public radio and television stations, as well as any other recipients of CPB funds, all these abbreviations today, do not use federal funds for NPR and PBS. The president previously called for the defunding of the two media services, gave CPB until June 30th to enforce his directive. Wow. The nonprofit corporation is set to receive $535 million in congressionally appropriated funds in 25 and 26. I just see, from what I'm reading, they're just doing a really mass cut. They're not just not granting them any money anymore. They're just definitely cutting a lot from it. So that's just really, really interesting that they're saying they just feel like their news is outdated. It's just like, okay, everybody knows PBS does historical. What do they mean news? I thought they were documentaries. Like I said, they do have their own news hour station. I've even seen that. I think it's called PBS News Hour or PBS Hour or something like that. But how you just gonna call their news outdated? But still, if they were looking at the overall U.S. Department of Education and everything it funds, I just think it's funny that PBS came up. Because they do fund them. So it's like, to me, more of it seems that way, just like a flex of power. Like, yeah, we fund you guys. We feel like your news is outdated. And that's the position you put yourself in. With any grant, you gotta be in compliance with the guidelines of what qualifies you for that grant. Not even PBS is excluded from that. I would just say, when will they think it's time? Or maybe they already have to think about that. Like, if they want to do things the way they've been doing it, they will probably have to find new funders. Maybe that's what Trump is telling them. I don't know. This is interesting. Because if it's been funded since 1969, 1970 to be exact, why cut funding now? Anyways, we're seeing these history-making changes happen. That's crazy, right before our eyes. Thank you guys for tuning in. I know I probably wouldn't be on here long. I just wanted to come give my live reaction to these updates because they are definitely happening. This order was signed. Y'all heard what I said. It said on Thursday evening. And there are already some states that are seeing an increase in employer cuts. like where they've been kind of laying people off, or I heard some people are just quitting. That same stuff. I wouldn't say we're in great resignation status again, but people are being laid off and cut from different U.S. Department of Education jobs too. It's just a lot going on today, y'all. These days, these days. Thank you guys for tuning in to another segment. I'll be back soon, live, just interacting with you guys a lot more often. Thank you for your support.